Hey everyone, welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today's episode is about how change comes when you reach out and get connected. This week's guest is Chase Hartman, and Chase is the founder of Eco Brothers and an award-winning book distribution project called Read.repeat. Chase is passionate about community service and improving young people's literacy rates in his community, and it was great to learn more about the work he's doing with a bunch of different organizations. So, without further ado, let's get started with this episode featuring Chase Hartman.
My name is Chase Hartman. I am a freshman at the University of Florida, and I'm originally from Tampa, Florida. A lot of what I do is centered around community service. So I'm the founder of Eco Brothers, which is a organization mainly focused on education equity that was founded in 2016 and turned into an official 501c3 nonprofit in 2020. And I'm also involved in a few other kind of civic action organizations such as Civics Unplugged and Riley's Way, and now I'm the chief marketing officer for the Sunshine Education Foundation. So I just love doing community service, working with students, and just making real change in that way. And then I guess I love, swimming, dancing, listening to music, stuff like that as well.
I love that. And there's so much to talk about there. I also love that you threw in those last couple of things because I think
Yeah,
it shows that you're well-rounded. And I would love to talk about those a little bit as well because I think you're in college and just how you're managing to juggle it all. I'll definitely
right.
ask you about that later. But can you tell me what got you started with this work? What made you interested in doing community service in the first place? Tell me a little bit about that background for you.
Yeah, so I had always been involved in kind of some type of community service organization since elementary school. So I think the first significant one was the Cub Scouts. My mom had, initially just pushed me into it because a lot of the other kind of boys in elementary school were doing that. But I actually had a really good time because I was, learning about some of the real problems in our community through some of the events that we were organizing. And I guess where Read Repeat and Eco Brothers came around was in fifth grade at my school we hosted an event called Boogie for Books, and that was where to attend this like dance, it was the boogie. You had to donate a book, and at the end, these books were donated to a kind of children's foster home that was local to Tampa. And my teacher really emphasized to us the fact that a lot of these kids in this foster home did not have a lot of books in their own homes. A lot of kids in our community did not have books in their own homes at all. So it really hit me hard because like I had always had so many books in my house and so many different series. I loved reading, Harry Potter and the Magic Tree House with my mom at night. And to know that there was kids that didn't have that same opportunity, it really just hit me hard in a way. And that was where, I talked to my teacher in school. We were able to host a few more book drives, and that's kind of really where it all got started with Read Repeat. And at my first book delivery, we got a bunch of news media coverage that helped us get used book donations for months. And that was also where kind of this one girl came up to me and she said, "This is my first book that I've ever owned before, and I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna hold it and read it forever." And that like really showed me, the impact of what I had already started and what I was, just trying to do from a few simple book drives. And so it really introduced me to the power of just simple community service and just rallying your community to do simple things like a book drive to like really make a big difference on others. And it's kind of blown up since then, and we've been able to make steady progress over the past 8 years, and have expanded into a bunch of different programs like books with diversity and dual language books and so many kind of new and innovative things to really make a bigger impact on the kids that we serve. And it's been really great.
That is amazing. And I think I want to hone in on Eco Brothers. Can you tell me the story behind that? That's also a really important part of your story. I'd love to know more about that.
Right. So Eco Brothers was born around, it was actually during COVID when I was sitting around the house a lot with my brother. We decided to kind of form our or merge our interests in a way into kind of just one singular project. And we decided that this would be called Eco Brothers. So not only did we form it, because we wanted it to be a 501c3 status so that we could like apply for grants and everything, but also we wanted to kind of just be that power duo that could solve a lot of our interests together, and it's worked well. We've been able to collaborate on a lot of events. I've been able to organize a bunch of community service events for Zach, and we've been able to expand on so many different issues other than literacy. So now we focus on animal health by upcycling stuffed animals and turning them into pet toys, and we focus on the environment by hosting beach cleanups and park cleanups, and we also do so many things for high schoolers that need volunteering hours. And then just this past year, we've developed a youth council. So we, wanted to expand globally, but found it really hard when it came to shipping costs for books and things like that. So we thought that a youth council would be a really great way for people to, come together and connect with their passions of literacy and the environment, while also having the opportunity to share their projects and gain insight and mentorship on how to build their own community service projects in their area. And that's been really great as well. We have over 120 members from, I think, 14 or 15 different countries now, and we've been able to open grant programs and volunteering opportunities virtually for a lot of these youth council members. So that's been really great as well, and I'm really glad that we've been able to expand globally while also being conservative with the way that we're using our money, and really emphasizing the power of starting like locally founded service projects, and really emphasizing just the power of keeping close to your community, because that's who you know best. And that's kind of how the youth council runs. It's a global organization and a global group of teens that are all making change, but in their own local communities. So it's really great.
I love that. It sounds really great. I think the idea of starting in your community too is something that so many people have done and they might already be doing, but maybe they aren't realizing it. Like I remember I was doing community service when I was in high school as well. And I think I never really valued as much of an impact as I was making. I didn't really realize it. This opportunity that you're providing people with to get connected with new opportunities and meet new people. And I just love it because I think it's creating this network. So, can you tell me about some of the challenges that you faced as you've been developing all of these different things? I'm sure you faced challenges as far as your time, which I want to ask you about that next, just how you balance everything. But can you tell me some of the other challenges that you faced as you've been developing?
Yeah, we've definitely hit a bunch of obstacles along the way. I think a really significant one was about 2 years ago. Yeah, I think it was about 2 years ago now, when a lot of banned books legislation came through the United States and specifically Florida. And that was where a lot of our kind of operations came to a halt, because teachers were not really wanting to accept books, in the fear that they would just get fired for, accepting the wrong book, which, was, I don't think it was illegal at the point, but, it was just not something that they wanted to do. And so we understood that, and I took myself to a school board meeting and kind of talked about that, and we were able to get through that obstacle at the time. Luckily, we are back to kind of organizing in-school deliveries. We just have to be a little bit careful with how, we're distributing used books and new books and things like that, just making sure that we have like lists prepared and stuff like that. So it's definitely created a little bit of a permanent change on the way that we handle our book deliveries, but we're still super glad that we're able to reach the children who really need these materials. And then other than that, I think I've just, learned a lot about, the time and effort it takes to organize a lot of these events. And I've been able to organize a bunch of book drives and community service events like beach and park cleanups that require a lot of effort to not only like set up the event itself and to pick the location and, get all the materials and stuff, but also just managing the people and keeping clear communication, I think is something that I've definitely struggled with before. And there's always times where I might see in our 10 different networks of communication, like email and Instagram, I might see a DM that we missed from 2 months ago. And I'm like, oh, shoot, that was a missed opportunity there. So we definitely still struggle with trying to kind of keep up with everything. But I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned, and is the biggest obstacle that I've kind of overcame from and am still trying to overcome at this moment.
I think that leads me perfectly into the next question. How do you make sure that you're spending time on the things that you enjoy doing outside of this work? How do you deal with burnout as well, if you've experienced that? How do you organize your time?
Yeah, I think what I've most recently learned, and I think I started learning it maybe junior or senior year of high school, is that I should really only be involving myself in things that I'm super passionate about and that I'm having fun in. And I think those are the places that I'm really gonna make the best use of my time, because if I'm actually interested in, learning about other people that are in that, said club or that said extracurricular, it's gonna be more worth my time, because I'm not just gonna be, watching the clock, waiting until that meeting is over, that event is over. So I definitely try to keep myself in things that just are naturally making me happy. And then I also try to keep myself in things that I can either meet new friends from, or that I can involve my friends in, or even just meet new friends in. And I think friends and, being able to do kind of those things with them is something that really powers me, because I'm able to share my love for community service, for instance, in some of those activities with them, and really kind of get them on the bandwagon of making that positive change and seeing the importance of making that positive change. So I also just, try to involve my friends in everything as well.
I love that. Kind of combine the worlds so they're not entirely separate. I think that
Right.
also saves you time, which is great. That's awesome. So, I have one more question for you. Lots of young people want to create change, but they might not know where to get started with that work. What advice would you want to share with those people who may be listening?
Yeah, I'd say that there's a super strong network of young people that are making change, and that are in, they have all different experience levels of kind of, the world of social impact. And so what I would say is try to look on Instagram or LinkedIn or any other social media and just reach out to them. A lot of people that I've never met before DM me on Instagram and, message me on LinkedIn and stuff about the most random things, but I'm always super happy to answer them and to give them advice on whatever they need. And sometimes I'm even willing to, set up a quick Zoom call with them just to give them like further information and stuff like that. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out to someone that, you think could be your mentor, or you think could even just give you a few quick pieces of advice, because it might go a long way and you might form a really strong relationship with those people.
It was so great to talk with Chase and to learn more about his work. I think Chase is reaching such a great balance between all of the different organizations he's working with and his different social impact roles, and still protecting his free time and having time to explore his own hobbies. To close out this episode, though, I just want to reiterate that last piece of advice that Chase shared, because through all of these different roles and different organizations that Chase is working with, he's created an amazing network of people who are also passionate about community service, literacy rates, and other issues. Chase is so open and encouraging to people who reach out to him to get involved with his work, and his story and all of the work he's doing with Eco Brothers, Read Repeat, and other organizations are great examples of how change comes when you reach out and get connected. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can find Chase on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I included those links in the description of this episode. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at Be The Change Media Network. I'm working on expanding Be The Change Media Network, which means bringing you more inspiring stories from amazing guests and new podcasts hosted by amazing hosts. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could leave the podcast a rating and a comment, because it will help these stories to reach, educate, and inspire more people. And I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.